China has quietly started building the largest dam in the history of the human race. It is called the Yarlung Tsangpo Dam, rising deep in the mountains of Tibet, and most people on Earth have never even heard its name. To understand how big it really is, start with the one dam nearly everyone has heard of. The Three Gorges Dam. When its reservoir filled, it moved so much water that it measurably slowed the spin of the Earth. Scientists actually sat down and did the math. And the sheer weight of that new lake lengthened every single day on the planet, by a tiny fraction of a second. A small effect, but a real one, and a measured one. Now imagine a dam 3 times more powerful than that. 3 times the output of the one machine humanity ever built that changed the length of a day. That is exactly what China is now carving into the Yarlung Tsangpo River, at a place called the Great Bend, in a remote county called Medog. And of every spot on Earth they could have chosen to attempt it, they picked the single most dangerous one. The deepest canyon on the planet, on top of an earthquake fault that has killed thousands, at the exact spot where a river leaves China and pours into India. This is Titan build. This is the biggest, most impossible dam ever attempted, and why it might start a war over water. Let us start with the river, because the river is the whole reason any of this is even possible. The Yarlung Tsangpo is born high on the Tibetan plateau, the roof of the world, and for a while it behaves itself, running flat and calm across the high desert. Then it reaches a mountain called Namcha Barwa. Almost 8,000 meters of rock and ice, standing directly in its path. And instead of going around gently, the river does something violent. It slams into the mountain, whips around it in a tight hairpin turn, and falls off the edge of the plateau. This is the Great Bend. In a stretch of about 50 kilometers, the river drops around 2,000 meters, straight down through the mountains. To picture that, stack 2 Burj Khalifas, the tallest building on Earth, one on top of the other. The river falls further than that. And here is what an engineer sees when they look at it. Falling water is power. The higher the fall, the more power. A 2,000-meter drop, with one of the largest rivers in Asia pouring through it, is the greatest concentration of untapped energy left on the surface of this planet. For a century, every hydropower engineer alive has looked at the Great Bend and dreamed. And for a century, one simple fact stopped them. Nobody could get there. Because the Great Bend does not just carry the most powerful river. It cuts the deepest canyon on Earth, the Yarlung Tsangpo Grand Canyon. Over 5,000 meters deep in places. Nearly 3 times deeper than the Grand Canyon in America. Sheer walls of rock and jungle. Glaciers hanging above, the river roaring at the bottom like an engine that never shuts off. Namcha Barwa itself is one of the last great mountains that humans mostly left alone. Wrapped in cloud for most of the year, ringed by glaciers. So remote and so vicious in its weather, that it was one of the highest peaks on Earth to go unclimbed until the 1990s. This is the guardian the river has to smash its way around. And this is the rock the engineers now want to drill straight through. The land around it was, until very recently, one of the last truly cut-off places on the planet. The county at the heart of this, Medog, was the final county in all of China to get a paved road. That road did not arrive until the year 2013. Before that, you walked in. Days on foot, over landslide paths, across rope bridges, through leech-infested forest. That isolation turned the canyon into a kind of accidental paradise. It is one of the richest pockets of life in all of Asia. Stacked from subtropical jungle at the bottom to glaciers at the top. Home to creatures found almost nowhere else on Earth. All of it now sits inside the footprint of the largest construction project ever planned. So the dream sat there. Too much power to ignore. Too dangerous to reach. Until China decided that no was not an acceptable answer. At the end of 2024, the project was approved. And the plan is not what you are imagining. When you think of a giant dam, you think of a giant wall. A curved cliff of concrete plugging a valley, with a lake behind it. That is 3 gorges. That is almost every big dam ever built. This is not that. You cannot put one enormous wall across the deepest canyon on Earth, in an earthquake zone, and expect it to survive. The forces are simply too big. So the engineers looked at that violent hairpin turn, the Great Bend, and had a genuinely audacious idea. Do not dam the bend. Cut through it. Remember, the river spends 50 kilometers looping the long way around Namcha Barwa to lose its 2,000 meters of height. But the two ends of that loop are only about 30 kilometers apart in a straight line, separated by solid mountain. So the plan is to drill straight through the mountain. A series of enormous tunnels punch through the rock beneath Namcha Barwa, taking a shortcut across the neck of the bend. Divert part of the river into those tunnels, and instead of falling gently over 50 winding kilometers, it drops its full 2,000 meters over a short, brutal, controlled distance. Put the turbines at the bottom of that drop, and you capture almost all of that energy at once. It is less a dam and more a set of arteries, cut through a mountain to steal a river's fall. But drilling through a Himalayan mountain is its own nightmare. Kilometers underground. The weight of the entire range presses in on the rock, trying to squeeze the tunnels shut like a fist closing. Hit a hidden fault, and superheated water can blast in without any warning at all. The deeper you bore, the hotter it gets. Machines the size of buildings will have to chew through some of the most stressed, broken, unpredictable rock on the planet, and hold those tunnels open long enough to run a river through them. Get it wrong, and the mountain simply closes the wound. Now the numbers, and this is where it stops sounding like engineering and starts sounding like fiction. The planned capacity is around 60,000 megawatts. Three Gorges, the dam that slowed the Earth, produces about 22,000. So this one project is designed to produce roughly 3 times the power of the largest power station humanity has ever built. In a single year, it is expected to generate around 300 billion kilowatt hours. Enough electricity to run entire nations. To put 60,000 megawatts in human terms, that is power for hundreds of millions of homes, running day and night, from a single point in a canyon almost nobody will ever see. It is the output of dozens of nuclear reactors, fed by nothing but gravity in a falling river. The cost is estimated at over 1 trillion yuan, somewhere north of $130 billion. That makes it, on its own, one of the most expensive single objects ever constructed by human beings. For that price, you could build the Three Gorges Dam again, and again, and again, and still have money left over. It is worth sitting with that comparison, because Three Gorges was never a small thing. Building it flooded 13 cities, 140 towns, and thousands of villages upstream. It forced around 1.5 million people to leave their homes forever. For its time, it was the most expensive and most controversial construction project on Earth. And this new dam is designed to make 3 of it. That is the scale of ambition we are talking about. But money is only useful if it can reach the work. And this work is in the middle of nowhere. Before a single turbine spins, you have to build the way in. Roads carved into sheer cliff faces. Bridges over a river that has a habit of eating bridges. Camps, supply lines, and power stretched into a canyon that had no paved road at all until 2013. On most megaprojects, getting there is step 1. Here, getting there is half the entire war. So, the most powerful dam in history, built by tunneling through the deepest canyon on Earth, at the far end of the worst road on the continent. What could possibly go wrong? Almost everything. Start with the ground itself. This canyon exists because of a slow-motion catastrophe. India is ramming into Asia, and has been for 50 million years, crumpling the crust upward into the Himalayas. That collision is still happening. Right now. Which means this is one of the most seismically violent places on the planet. In 1950, this exact region was hit by one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded on land. Around magnitude 8.6. It tore the mountains apart. It rerouted rivers. Whole hillsides slid into the canyon. Some of those landslides dammed the river by accident. And then those natural dams burst. and sent walls of water down onto everything below. The canyon has already done by itself, in a single afternoon, the exact thing the engineers now fear most. Now propose building the largest dam in history, full of tunnels, directly on top of that fault. If the ground that killed thousands in 1950 does it again, it will be doing it under a structure holding back an ocean of water and the power grid of a superpower. Then there is what the mountains do even when they are not shaking. This is a land of landslides, of glaciers that melt and burst, of glacial lakes that fail without warning and send walls of water and rock down the canyon. The engineers are not building next to these hazards. They are building inside them. Every tunnel, every turbine hall, every access road has to survive falling mountains, in a place so remote that until a decade ago, you could only reach it on foot. And then, past the rock and the earthquakes, comes the most dangerous problem of all, the one that has nothing to do with engineering. Because of where the river goes next, the Yarlung Tsangpo does not stay in China. It crosses the border, changes its name to the Brahmaputra, and becomes one of the great lifelines of South Asia. It feeds northeast India. It feeds Bangladesh. Hundreds of millions of people farm, drink, and live along its water downstream. And now the country upstream, China, is building a hand on the tap. Think about what a dam this size can do. It can hold water back. It can let water go. To the people downstream, that is terrifying in both directions. Hold too much back, and you can starve the fields of India and Bangladesh in the dry season. Let too much go at the wrong moment, or lose control of it in an earthquake, and you can send a flood down onto tens of millions of people.
Maintain surveillance
With almost no warning. India has looked at this project and reacted the way any nation would, with alarm. They have begun planning their own massive dam downstream, partly as a shield, a buffer to catch whatever comes over the border, controlled or not. Two enormous walls of concrete, on the same river, staring at each other across a contested border. Bangladesh, further down still and lower than both, can only watch and hope the giants upstream stay calm. And there is history here. These are neighbors who have fought real wars over exactly this border. They do not share their river data freely. Now the single most important number in the region, how much water is coming and when, will sit in the hands of whoever controls the top of the mountain. So the deepest canyon on Earth is now the front line of a quiet contest between two nuclear-armed neighbors, fought with concrete and water instead of weapons. The engineers building it will tell you it is about clean energy. And on paper, it is staggering. 300 billion kilowatt-hours a year, with no smoke, no coal, no carbon. For China, the appeal is obvious. A single clean source the size of a national grid, in a decade when the whole world is starving for power that does not burn. Get it right, and it is one of the greatest energy prizes ever claimed. No fuel to buy, no fuel to burn, forever. Just a mountain, a river, and the nerve to stand between them. Get it wrong, and it fails in the most dangerous canyon on the planet, directly upstream of hundreds of millions of people. But water has never only been about power. Water is life, and control of water is control of life. Everyone downstream understands exactly what is being built above their heads. For a farmer in Assam, planting rice beside a river his family has trusted for 1,000 years, the weather now includes a decision made in an office far away in Beijing. That is a strange new kind of fear. Not of the sky, of the tap. Step back and look at the whole thing. A river that falls further than two of the tallest buildings on Earth stacked together. A canyon 3 times deeper than the Grand Canyon, in the last wild corner of a continent. An earthquake fault that has already killed on a massive scale. Tunnels driven straight through an 8,000-meter mountain to steal the fall of a river. 60,000 megawatts. 3 times the dam that slowed the planet. Over $130 billion. And 2 great powers watching the same water with very different hopes. The Three Gorges Dam was once the boldest thing a country had ever built. It moved enough of the earth to change the length of a day. This project is designed to make Three Gorges look small. It is the point where human ambition runs directly into the two things that have always been bigger than us: the movement of the planet and the need for water. They are going to spend the next decade, and more money than most countries have, finding out who wins. Construction has already begun. The first roads, the first camps, the first bores into the rock. A project this size will take the better part of a decade, and quite possibly far longer, and no one can promise it will work. Dams a fraction of this size have failed. None has ever been attempted anywhere like this. The mountain is still rising. The fault is still loaded. The river is still falling. And now, at the bottom of the deepest canyon on Earth, human beings are going to try to grab all of it at once. The largest river drop left on the planet, the worst earthquake fault in the region, and the drinking water of half a continent. All in one place. All at the same time. If you want more impossible structures like this one, subscribe to Titan Build. And tell me in the comments, should anyone be allowed to build a hand on a river that feeds half a continent?